everyone, it's Raina. So this video is for those people who have their natal Saturn in the third house, which is the house of learning, of the mind, itself. So how you communicate, how you receive information, how you communicate information. And so Saturn is a planet that is connected with authority figures. It's about discipline, organization, and can be restrictive and have delays. Saturn is father time. And so when you have Saturn in this sector, this can indicate delays even in speech. From the sites that I got, and I did kind of cobble together from several sites, and I forgot to, acknowledge which ones, or like at least type them out here so I could tell you. But I didn't see anything about delayed speech, but I believe I read that in the past, that this can be somebody, who when they're 2 years old, says their first word when the average age might be 1, or, something like that. But they did mention having a possible speech impediment because of that restrictive nature of Saturn. So one thing that they mentioned is stuttering or stammering, and that makes sense because there's some obstruction there. And it's hard for the person to get their words out. And the other thing that they mentioned was a learning disability, or somebody who's a slow learner. And of course, these kinds of things are just labels, and there are specific things that can be at play here. For instance, if somebody has dyslexia, they can have a normal intelligence, but they transpose letters, so it's very hard for them to read. Now, obviously, that's going to make them learn at a slower pace, just because they are trying to decode letters and it's all jumbled. It's very interesting. I worked for most of a school term as a teacher's assistant in special education, and one thing that was really fascinating was that they had one of the teachers did, for some kind of like fun thing, they had like the word jumbles, and they put it on the board for the kids. And this student that had dyslexia was really good at the word jumble. It was like, that was probably, they saw it probably as the way the word really was. And that was always kind of a challenging thing for me, was to do the word jumbles. But there was a kid, and I think he got like all of them. I don't know. It was a long time ago. But so the thing is that this can, these kinds of things can have, a detrimental effect on somebody's self-esteem. The third house can be childhood, as it relates, I would say, especially to one's peers, and in the elementary school years, in that environment especially. And, being mocked, being teased because of these kinds of situations that might even make the young person, or I could say you, be afraid of speaking in general to others for fear of being considered intellectually inferior. If you stutter, afraid of somebody's going to laugh at you for stuttering, or think less of you because you stutter, or have some other type of speech impediment. I mean, if somebody is deaf, or even partially deaf, they might have kind of a distortion in their speech too. And they didn't mention that, but I just thought of that. It could be other things. So some kind of like problems with speaking or learning could possibly be happening here. Also, the mind itself may be pessimistic. Saturn can be very cynical, and when we say restrictive, it might be that the person doesn't believe something unless it's in front of their eyes. So they might be very skeptical, or very, having a hard time to be positive, and believe that something good is around the corner unless it's, showing up for them. So in general, that can create even more, generate even more of these other kinds of negative reactions to the intellectual side of life. Because if you don't have a positive outlook, then how can you overcome other problems in this area? It's very difficult. There can be, the third house can be your immediate environment, and the person can feel unwanted in their environment. They may feel a sense of loneliness. Saturn is kind of lonely. In their childhood, maybe a coldness. Maybe there's a feeling of being on the outside looking in with one's peers and not feeling like that. The other thing that was really interesting that I found from one of these sites is this idea of not being allowed to explore the neighborhood. So there was also a mention of, maybe heavy responsibilities with siblings, compared to other kids, having to take care of younger brothers and sisters, maybe being the oldest and the parents working, or if a parent is incapacitated somehow, or a single parent, and there's not another parent there. So having, sometimes siblings have to even cook and do all those things, clean, and so that can interfere with having a childhood. And that can also interfere with being able to go out and play and explore the area. So, those two things could even be related. One thing that I remember reading about this house before researching it tonight in the past, I don't think I was imagining this, but they said something like, that idea of children should be seen and not heard. And so if this is about expressing yourself, and if you grew up with an authority figure that did not want you, says, don't talk back to me, don't have a different opinion from me, that there's a real, almost like a sense of mind control. You think what we tell you to think, and you don't, say anything different, then it can be like an oppressive feeling. Like, you do not have a voice because you're a child. And so somebody who grows up like that can be, kind of afraid to speak out about things, even as an adult, because they were just conditioned that way. And so finding your voice may be very important, especially as it goes against authority figures. And I notice, in society right now, there's a lot of conditioning, like, listen to this person because they have, this training, this expertise, blah, blah, blah. And the thing is that that may be all well and good, but we may have other ideas of what that training represents to us. We may not think that the training was legit from the get-go. So, their opinion based on that training isn't necessarily going to impress us. And I'm saying us, I don't have this placement, but I'm just saying in general. So being able to have your own mind is very important, and not just deferring to other people, especially authority figures. You may have a lack of spontaneity in speech, which can, it's funny because they mentioned, this lack of spontaneity, and then they mentioned not liking small talk. And I thought, yeah, that's kind of like what that means, because somebody who can do small talk, they can just like be at a bus stop and they can have a involved conversation with a complete stranger. And it's and I would even say small talk can be, it could be mundane, topics, but it could even be like deep topics, as long as they are um but the spontaneity factor where you can just do it on the spur of the moment. Yeah, I guess those are two different things in a sense, because small talk is more about trivialities, and you may not like superficial subject. You have a serious mind. Because of this, you may just be a man or woman of few words, a person of few words. And I was just thinking about the strong silent type. But let's say you're a sun in Gemini, and Geminis are known, I was going to say, for verbal diarrhea or something. That's probably not very cool for me to say that, is it? But if you have, the sun in Gemini and Mercury in Gemini, for sure, and you have this placement, you might be uncharacteristically conservative with the amount of words that you utter. This can give you, this position can give you a good concentration for studying, for learning things. But you might be very restrictive in the types of subject matter that you get into. You might not want to get into new subject matter. And I would even say, because Saturn, I think, is quite conservative, things that are kind of far out, you might believe that you have to have the right sources and that was kind of what I was getting at with when I was talking about what your own belief system and who you listen to as well, when you receive your information. And so it's really quite interesting. I didn't think I was going to find all that much to talk about, but I think I managed to. So I hope that you enjoyed this. If you would like a personal reading, the link is below. Thank you for listening. Take care. Bye.